Hey everybody, Kip Winger here, inviting you to check out All Access Live.
Hey everybody, Rod Morgenstein here. Make sure to check out Kevin Rankin's All Access.
Hello, this is 2024 AVN Hall of Famer Nikki Dial, and you're watching All Access Live with.
Hey guys, this is Marina V, and I invite you to check out All Access Live with my friend Kevin Rankin. I hear
What is happening, everybody? Thank you for being here at All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. Do me a favor, before we even get started today, I want you to do this. Go to youtube.com/@accesskevin. Down below, you'll see that channel. Make sure you subscribe, like this video, share it with your buddies. You can also become a member, and members get exclusive access to episodes only for those people that sign up. I've got episodes with Kelly Kiki from Night Ranger at his place down in Phoenix, and backstage with Midge Ura from Ultravox, Cy Kernan from The Fix, even Ginger Lynn. So make sure you subscribe, if nothing else. And also, this episode would not be available if it weren't for my amazing friends at 5 Star Guitars. So if you go to 5 Star and you want to play guitar, make sure you check out 5starguitars.com. There's no sales tax in Oregon, so you're going to save a bunch of money. And when you check out, use the promo code of All Access Live, and you'll find that you save 15%. So great deal for them, great deal for you, and it allows us to have amazing guests like my next one. You know him from OurLadyPeace. You might know his project with Chantal Kraviasek, his beautiful bride, but he also has amazing tech startups. He's got some apps that are specific to musicians. So we're going to talk about all that. And with no further ado, I've got him right here, Raine Maida. How you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
It's great to meet you in person, sir. We've kind of crossed paths in the Canadian music scene, but never got to meet in person. So I'm glad for that, man. And we initially talked about having you and Chantal together, and as it happens in the music biz, man, things come up, and you got to pivot.
She was here for a minute, but last second she had to fly to Sweden last night. So there you go.
I appreciate you holding the torch, man.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I've done a lot of research. I watched your the documentary. I'm going to break your heart. And as I shared it with a bunch of my friends, we all feel like we know you, rather, although we've not met you in person. And when I said
for better or for worse,
oh, I know, man. I was gonna say. So when you were saying, I'll go ahead and talk. I can answer questions for her. I thought, man, do you really want to fall into that trap? But there were some really special things about that. And so we can get to the documentary. We can talk a little bit about the vulnerability you exhibited. But man, I've got a ton of stuff to ask you. It relates to music, but also the tech world. I didn't know if you knew. I told you, I played drums with the Flock of Seagulls.
Of course.
We've got a Canadian superstar in our band. The singer for the Spoons is actually our guitarist in the band.
Oh, wow.
And so we're up there a lot. And it seems like every stop along the way, people were talking about OurLadyPeace and sort of the influence that you guys have had on the rock world in Canada. So we're going to talk about that. We got to talk about FanDrop. We got to talk about your NFTs. And so,
amazing.
But I have to tell you first, man, there's a gal that I know in the music business here in Portland, Oregon. She's a tour manager. She worked with a lot of studios. She's wondering, she was the first person to chat here in the YouTube channel, asking if you remember this girl in Portland, Oregon, that has not only purple hair, but a massive OurLadyPeace tattoo across her back.
That definitely rings a bell. Yes.
Yeah. It's
yeah.
Her name's Tracy
What's her
Salisbury.
name?
Tracy
Okay,
Salisbury.
Tracy.
She's a real champion for the OLP cause, and Well, she and her husband had been forever. Unfortunately, she just lost her husband, and
Oh
and
no.
this is a cathartic thing for her. So she's watching. She was the first. She actually put this in the chat on the channel probably 2 days ago. So, if you want to give a shout out to Tracy, man, she's a big fan.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Tracy. That's awful.
Uh, so let's talk about the catharsis, right? Music. And one of the things that I saw in the documentary, and also some of the things that you've talked about online, was what music has done for your mental health. And I get a sense watching the documentary that you hold your cards close to the vest. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, the idea of music having the power to heal, I think, is real to most people in some form. I think it hit a little deeper in around the age of 14, the household, going to church on Sundays and confession and stuff. And as you get older, you start to question that stuff. But it seemed like music was able to fill that any gaps I had from like organized religion. Music was able to fill for me, and almost in a more powerful way. So it became this spiritual journey, in a sense, of the music that I grew up on and would fall asleep to listening every night. And so I'm not sure if it's paying it forward sounds, I don't know, it sounds pretty obnoxious, but the idea of trying to be a bigger part of that ecosystem is definitely what I've kind of strived for.
What were you listening to when you went to bed at night?
Early U2 records like Unforgettable Fire, Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska, Neil Young, um, artists that really weren't afraid to be vulnerable in a
Mm,
way, to
yeah.
touch a certain part of them that um I don't know, just felt like you actually there's a lot of songs where things are more kind of I'm not sure if gentrified is the right word, but it feels like, okay, like I get it, I get the broader idea, but those artists specifically were talking from their hearts and giving real experiences, and so I really appreciated that and connected really tightly. Sinead O'Connor was another huge artist for
Ah,
me that,
yeah.
yeah.
Man, I mean, you mentioned Springsteen right there. Obviously, it's big in the news this week, right? And
Yeah.
I, just like Springsteen, your bride sort of made public news for using her voice for sort of a cause. I think the last month,
She
and
did.
I was in Canada watching the Four Nations
Oh, were you really?
tournament.
Yeah.
I was, yep.
Yeah.
I'm in Vancouver a lot, and
Okay.
I see you, Salima, there in Oakville, Ontario, chatting. You got a lot of Canadians from Laval, Quebec, as well. It looks like you got some fans here from Canada. Um,
Amazing.
but I loved her response. I mean, obviously it's a polarized time. You live in America, you're Canadian. Um, you're watching kind of what There's always been a little bit of a discourse the last few terms, at least in presidential terms. There's been a different relationship that America has with Canada. And I thought Chantal was real diplomatic in the way that she presented "Oh Canada," and just a pivot on the lyrics. But um, you know what? Let's have her answer that when we have her back on, because I do think. Well, did you guys discuss it before she did it?
No, you know
Yeah.
what? It was crazy. We had this chaotic start to our tour that was starting in Calgary the night before, and there was a it was a Delta airline, like a Delta jet that crashed in Toronto. We
Right.
had half our crew and half the band was in Toronto. Steve and I, the guitar player, we flew from LA, so we were fine. We got there on time, but we were literally like minutes away. We had to find a private jet to get half our crew and half our band to Calgary in time to do the first show. So that was just a nightmare. And then we got to Edmonton the next day and we finally could do like a proper rehearsal and sound check. So I really didn't have a chance I knew Chantel was doing it. She'd flown to Boston the day before, and I knew she was there, but it was just literally so chaotic. We didn't speak before. So um, finally, when I felt like everyone settled down and it's like, okay, we have like an hour and a bit before our show. Let's go watch the Four Nations Cup. And I knew Chantel was singing the anthem. So we went backstage to where, whatever, like the President's Lounge or something at Edmonton, where the Oilers had all their trophies and stuff. And it was amazing. Huge screen. We're watching the game and she starts the anthem. And some people thought she messed up the lyric, But then very quickly, people started to realize after that, oh, she changed the lyric. And it was crazy because the game went in overtime. We had to go on stage because of the union fees at the Rogers Arena.
Right.
But we start our first song, we end it, and we're playing in Connor McDavid's arena, and he scores the winning goal.
All
And
right.
and it was insane. And so it was this cultural moment where our
Right.
manager threw me an Edmonton Oilers jersey, a McDavid jersey. I kind of held it up. The whole crowd of like 20,000 people just start singing the anthem louder
Wow.
than I've ever heard in my life. The hair standing up on my arms right now just talking about it. So it was this amazing heritage moment. The show, was incredible after that. But around 1 a.m. in the morning, Chantel calls me and it's like chaos because Rolling Stone had written about it, The Guardian in London, New York Times, everyone had written like, okay, this is a real flex and a diss against the US president. And, she's getting asked to be on Fox, but then also be on like CNN or MSNBC. And it's just like trying to figure out what to do. So the next 2 days were really like crisis management.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it was really her just saying, "Hey, you know what? Canada's not for sale," basically. And the lyric kind of exemplified that. And she didn't end up doing anything. She didn't want to exploit it. But I'm proud of her. She's a badass.
Yeah, man, she is. The response I saw after too, she mentioned being Ukrainian, and kind of expressing, her sort of frustration with what's happening
Yeah.
there. And I will tell you, like right after that, I typically don't talk politics on the show, but
Right.
it's important for me right now too because there's a lot going on. Right. I was in Surrey. I was just outside of Vancouver 5 days before the Prime Minister was elected, and I went to Mark Carney's rally. And
Oh wow.
his entire rally focus, right? His campaign was driven really primarily on the opposition of this annexing of the 51st state.
Right.
And there are, as you know, I mean, there are pockets of Canada that are so polar opposites from each other, right? When I first was exploring Canada and its political history, Trudeau's father, and then Trudeau and other friends of mine that are Canadian, that they would talk about their distaste for a particular prime minister and the way that the government goes. You're never going to appease 100% of the people ever, right? When I listen to Carney talk about this, and he say, "Look, man, I'm a proud Canadian. I want Canada to be independent and on its own. We didn't start this fight. America doesn't want to be friends." And right at the end of his speech, he came and he was shaking hands, and I said, "Hey, man, Mark, I'm an American. I want to be friends. I love Canada." And
I love that.
and he said, "Well, we can build up on that." We turned the corner. He grabbed my girlfriend's hand. He grabbed it, and she said, she's Vancouver. She's a Canadian. She said, "This is my American boyfriend." Mark said, "Hey, you got a good one. We can build up on that. We can do this." And so I like the fact that he was willing to recognize that, of course he knows that not every American is represented by what's happening politically in America.
Yeah.
But I did see from the other side, how things are portrayed. I see how divisive things have gotten. Now, as a Canadian living in the US, man, has it been difficult? You've been going back and forth right across the border. Has it been challenging for you at all?
It hasn't really. I mean, all our kids were born down here with green cards. We were worried about with Chantel, if all of a sudden they're gonna flag her, but it's been fine. And I almost feel like it's died down and it's dying down by the week now. I don't think there should never be any friction between the two countries. We've been friends for so long and
Yeah.
trade partners, and there's so much back and forth. So, the cause of it, we all know where that came from, but I don't think there's a lot of I don't think there's a big long tail to this. I think it gets figured out pretty quickly. But I was very political for a while. I've written some songs that are political. I think more than anything today, I see the divergence not by party, but more by the fact that we have to fight for the people who don't have as much. And that's really the disparity. It's the people that have a lot and the people that don't. And so party affiliation, like, let's throw that stuff out the window. This is
You
just
bet.
about, like, it's just about equity, right? It's trying to find some closer sense of equity. And so that's kind of where my mission is really gravitated to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your music has been that, and your efforts outside of music looked a lot at your work with FanDrop. You've done work with NFTs and trying to find ways that musicians and artists can make a living in this industry right now when it's really challenging. Just like the political structure that you talked about. The haves and the have-nots. Man, there are a lot of haves that are at the top, and the have-nots are struggling, and musicians are really getting nailed by the brunt of that. So one of the conversations I heard you talk about was what happened with Napster, and how you felt like, yeah, that really kicked our ass a little bit, but rather than be victim to it, want to do something about it. So can you tell me a little bit about your journey along the way?
Yeah, it's amazing. We were actually in Maui. We were working on a record with Bob Rock, who, had just done the Black album and huge success on that, and was very close to Metallica. And they were Bob was getting sent edits from that Metallica documentary. I can't remember what it's called, but documentary on the band and like the internal struggles and stuff. And Bob was part of it because it was during the making of a record called Saint Anger. But within that, you start talking a little bit about Metallica and asking questions. And to me, it was always interesting because Lars really took a stand when Napster came out, saying this is bullshit.
Right.
This is not fair for artists. We have to stop this. And the fans really got on Lars. And I, ultimately Lars, I think he was right. But it was amazing to watch that kind of like discourse happen in real time and then hear Bob's view on it and everything. And so all it did was just hit me to the fact like there's this paradigm shift that's happening in the music business, whether we like it or not. I love the fact that music had been democratized in sort of recording. All of a sudden anybody could really record a song in their basement. And so that was great. And now soon after you're going to be able to distribute that music on your own to a streamer, whether it was Deezer back in the day or Apple or Spotify, obviously. So got really interesting by the sense of like how do we like how can I be a part of this paradigm shift? And so for me it was really like starting to understand tech better, not just on the recording side but in terms of solutions and platforms and apps and stuff that can help. Really for me it was always about helping and supporting the independent creator. So I've been on that journey for a long time, built and raised money on different projects, but FanDrop really, I think, is the most important one that I've been involved in and started as a founder and CEO in the sense of in 2025, if you don't own your fan data as an artist, you're doomed. Like
Yeah.
you are like the margins on touring, as you know, Kevin, are like getting tighter and tighter.
Yeah.
A lot of bands, a lot of artists canceling tours. It's just they don't want to go out and lose 40 or 50 or $100,000. So the idea is if you don't make up, Avi lost the revenue on the streaming side. So if you don't find ways to make up that revenue, and really what it is kind of trying to find these pieces of the pie that you can claw back from the gatekeepers. And one of those things is going direct to your fan, whether it's selling your tickets or selling your merch or vinyl or VIPs or whatever that be. But having that direct relationship, and this is all based on a book from 2012, I think, called Thousand True Fans. So if you can get 1,000 true fans that believe in you, are willing to connect with you directly, and that's where that transaction happens, it's game changer. Hard
Yeah.
thing is getting those fans in because we've all relied on third-party platforms to build our communities.
Right.
Back to MySpace, to Facebook, obviously Instagram now and TikTok. Those third-party platforms don't share any of that data with me. If I don't like what they're doing, it's not portable. This is a Web3, kind of pillar, but the idea of portability, I can't take those with me if I want to move them somewhere else. So we just came up with a concept, or I live this. It's like I stand on stage, like in Edmonton, there's 20,000 people. It's biblical for 2.5 hours. The lights go up, those people all walk out, and now they're anonymous to me.
Right.
So FanDrop is really, it's about impacting live events where we've just built a super seamless kind of slick fan engagement platform that uses Geo. So there's no app to download. There's really no QR code. We do use QR codes, but the idea is that all you do is type in fandrop.com and you get to a show. Our Geo picks you up. You get you're served all these cool rewards and unlockables. And if you like something, you just check in with your email, check in 1.2 seconds, and now you're connected to the band and you get a lot of free shit and get the chance to win things. We use it on the Our Lady Peace tour, and Again, trying to democratize that space where I know the first 20 rows spent a lot of money to get those tickets, maybe spent money on VIPs, but the people up in the nosebleeds, let's give them the same chance to win. We called it, it was an encore experience where 10 people every night got to be on stage for the 4-song encore and stand right there with us, feel what it looks like to look out to the crowd, hear the music from the stage, feel all the production lights from the stage. And it was an amazing like gift, cost us nothing. We just gifted it to 10 fans every night. So, but we got to talk and get, all these people into our community now. So now we have that direct connection. Critical.
That's amazing. And when you first launched this, it's been a couple of years now, right? That this has been out. So have you
Yeah.
had good adoption from other artists? And while you answer that, I'm going to step off for just a quick second and check the background noise here. So answer
Yeah,
that.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've done about 3 or 4 thousand shows with tons of artists. Um, we also do sports, but the idea really is just like again, empowering artists to find reachable audiences. Because again, those fans, if you let fans walk out and you don't have their connection, they're there to see you. They want to connect with you, but like us, they rely on third-party platforms to talk to us, and it's tough. Like someone was in my DMs today and was like, "Hey, you know what? There is a platform. It's called Instagram, and if you just answer your DMs," I said, I get that, but when I do a post, I can see it's only hitting like 6% of my community.
Right.
That's not cool.
Yeah.
That needs to be changed. That's not sustainable for any artist really. So, the idea of building these reachable audiences that we can talk to directly, it's what we're doing. And we see like probably between 25 and 50% conversion rates at every show.
50. All right. So when you first announced it, you talked about a little bit more engagement, but I would think that that place in particular is obviously the best place that you can get them and snare them in. I sent this promo out to a lot of guys in the music business, both artists that are traveling, but also promoters, managers, some guys that I knew could benefit from this tool. And admittedly, I hadn't heard of it before this week when you and I started talking about doing the show.
Right.
And so part of this too is the market saturation from other tools that are out there. And I know you've done South by and you've done some other events to kind of showcase this, but I'm hopeful because I got excited about the tool and I'd like to be able to shout this from the rooftops. But how are you getting the word out right now? Are you just doing word of mouth or what's the marketing plan?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking we're in the sports world as well. I think artists are typically slow to adopt stuff, and I get it. Like an artist bandwidth is like, oh my God, I got to do, 8 things for TikTok this week, and I'm trying to raise money to go in the studio, or I'm on tour and I'm exhausted because we're loading our gear, and there's so much. Like artists have to wear so many hats. I sympathize for that. I get it. I do it. My son's a young artist. I get it. Like I live in that world. So when someone comes along and says, "Hey, here's something new that you should be doing." But the reality of it is, and I hate to say this, and I don't want to sound, preachy, but this is actually the most important tool that you'll use because whether you're starting off in clubs or you're in big places, getting that is the gold standard now. You need to get those people in the community because this thing is going to get worse and worse as the weeks and months go by and years on social media and your ability to talk to those fans. So you need to do it now.
Yeah. One of the guys in the chat that I just showcased here on the screen, Brent Meyer, he's got probably the most impressive tribute I've ever seen. He does a Depeche Mode tribute that just came back from Chile. We've toured with them a bunch, and they've got their machine dialed. One of those points in the night, about 2/3 of the way through the night, they take a break and they show all of their socials, and they tell everybody, get out your phone right now and start to engage. And they are so involved with their social media. But just like you mentioned, the algorithms are rigged, right? So the social media algorithms are such that you're only getting such a small window, and so your massive, the breadth and depth of your audience isn't really captured by the machine that's already put in place, right? So if these artists in particular, if these people are out there and they want to get involved with FanDrop, what's the best solution?
Yeah, just you can rain at fandrop.com. Like that's it for me. And I feel like I'm the best, we have other people on our team but I'm the best evangelist for it because I use it and I live it every day. And I appreciate what those guys are doing,
Sure.
and the Depeche Mode tribute thing. It's like that's amazing. I would just, and I'm not telling people to abandon those tools. They're marketing
Sure.
tools, but
Yeah.
they own, control, and monetize our fan data. If you want to get down to it, right?
Yeah.
That's not cool. And they really expect artists, which is just fucking mind blowing. Sorry for swearing, but it's like they expect us to kind of like agree that shares, likes, and follows should be that's our payment, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
That doesn't pay for the flights to Vancouver. That doesn't put gas in the van to get
Right.
from Austin to Dallas. Like that doesn't work.
Right.
So I would just, I would implore that band, like within what they're talking about, also get people to understand, type in fan.com or put our QR code up and get that direct connection. If people are engaging that way and this is a problem with a lot of the artists, Kevin. They don't want to talk about it on stage.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'll see them do like something, like a manager was talking to me the other day and it was like, well, hey, we're using FanDrop, but we're not getting the conversions that you promised. I was like, that's interesting. Is the singer talking about it from stage? Well, no, he's not really comfortable. But I'm like, the stuff I saw him do on TikTok this week is the cringiest shit in the world.
Right.
But yet you won't do something authentic for your fans that are there, that have paid to see you. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want people to get it twisted where this isn't a sales job.
Yeah.
This is the authenticity of like actually connecting and telling these fans, it's like, thank you for coming here. I want to give you this stuff, give you these things, give you these rewards, give you these chances to win thing. And along the way, I get to connect to you directly now and move and remove all those gatekeepers.
Yeah.
It's like I can't tell you how critical it is.
Well, I have to tell you, hearing you say that, you absolutely articulate what my perspective is on appreciating fans. When we do shows, and I think if I heard you talk about the meet and greets, right? There's a paid meet and greet, and if there's a little handshake and a photo op at the beginning or the end of a show, typically the beginning of the show, um, the experience that those people have sometimes is disappointing, right? Because they feel like they want to know you a little more. And it's
Yeah.
not like you can sit there and have a half hour conversation with them prior to the show. And so if they paid money, they walk through, or they go through the cattle call, they get up and they take
Mm,
their quick photo and they shake a hand, and then they walk away feeling like, wow, you know what? I really wanted more. Uh,
yeah.
the opportunity that you're providing with FanDrop, it feels to me, I've heard you talk about the instances that you would say from backstage, hey, here's an acoustic version of the song you're going to hear tonight at the set. Or, I loved the energy that you guys had. Thanks for catching me as I jumped off the stage. And that personal experience is so key. I try to do that, at an independent level. I try to get out and engage with as many people on shows because I want them to know that them spending money on a
Yeah.
ticket and flying in and getting hotel rooms and supporting artists at this point when they have a lot of entertainment options, right? It's really key.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that a lot of those people come back because they felt special. They felt heard, you know?
That's a great point. I mean, to take that to the next level, what you said about tickets are expensive. I basically at this point in my career, and if someone's just starting on a club, I think they should feel the same way. Anybody that's paying a ticket to come see you, in my mind, because I know there's discrepancy here in terms of like fan or super fan.
Right.
No, you're a super fan, and it's my responsibility as an artist to make you understand that I feel that you're a super fan. And so if you take that as your responsibility as an artist, then that's what FanDrop does. That's the best way to describe it. We help fans. We help everyone in that building feel like they're a super fan.
Yeah. You just reminded me of a scene in the documentary. And first of all, if you guys got here a little bit late, there's a documentary that Raine and Chantel have called "I'm Gonna Break Your Heart." Um, the there's vulnerability in this, and I'm wondering. Well, before I get into it, the scene that I'm talking about is you guys are doing Saint Josephine in that pub. You guys,
Mm,
there had been a really intense songwriting session where you guys are exposing your hearts. There's some heaviness there. You go into that pub and you play St. Josephine. At the end of the song, there's some quick cuts. And the camera's shooting, and I screenshot these, not to share with you. I just was noticing your face. It's the biggest smile I see on your face the entire documentary. Your performance on stage and the engagement that you had with both fans, but also the musicians that are there was really special. I saw a different side of you than the rest of the documentary. And Chantel made a comment saying What did she say?
Oh, I do remember that, and I went up to her and I gave her a kiss afterwards, and she
Yeah. Oh my God.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Forehead to
that's
forehead.
amazing. Yeah.
And she said prior to that, I'm happiest when you and I play together. Everything else goes away. And so the experience you have on stage, right? There's something that happens with you with Raine Maida on stage that you don't get elsewhere. And I know you're a dedicated dad and a wonderful devoted husband, but there's
Mhm.
something about music that has been your lifeblood. So maybe talk to me about the importance of that. Like, where did that come from? Where was this the source of maybe some childhood stuff that music gave you the escape?
Yeah, I mean, going back to, like, when I said around 14, my parents got divorced, and I was kind of sent away to school, for a bunch of reasons, but, I'm at, like, this school, and I'm boarding there, and I don't wanna be there, and, nights were, like, really lonely, and I did a lot of soul searching, and music was my savior, and, like, again, like, just literally falling asleep to CDs back in the day, obviously, but, like I said, Nebraska and U2's and all these great artists, and what I realized was, okay, there's something so intrinsic in terms of my connection with this. It feels like a calling to me because I loved writing. I loved creative writing, like going back to grade 4. I always found myself, I loved, I hated math, but getting into creative writing class, I was totally engaged. And I remember teachers even back in like elementary school, wow, this is really good, Rain. And like, there's something here, is this something, talking to me about poets and stuff. And so but then you lose it. I get into high school and there's girls and I start to lose that connection. I didn't have the right teachers in terms of writing and literature and stuff. But the music it drew me back to that passion I had for writing again. And I felt like, okay, these kind of journals that I would write and stuff, it's like, oh, maybe that's the vehicle. Um, but I never saw myself really being like, I'd love beach poetry actually, but never being a poet that way or writing poetry. And so it felt like, okay, I need to learn to play an instrument and this is how I'm going to learn to express myself. And then at that high school that I was at, we formed a band, ended up getting kicked out because of forming that band. But the idea was that when I first got on stage and was able to sing, when we did a bunch of cover songs, but when I was able to sing my songs, there was a difference right there. And I was like,
Mm,
oh my gosh, like all of a sudden there was like this enlightenment in terms of, I guess like the pinnacle of creativity for me where a thought on the paper and then is transformed through music and you get to tell people this thought, right? And get that reaction and it's instant when it's music,
yeah.
it's a painting kind of sits maybe, in a studio like this and it sits there before you even show anybody a song, the ability to go play it on a stage and see that reaction. I mean, it's like better than any drug in the world.
Mm,
So, being on stage is I always get it. Like I don't love that like, you tour as well. Like the time in between shows can be tough. I just
yeah.
look for great food, but when you get to stand on that stage, it is transformative. And I appreciate it almost today more than I ever have.
I'm with you. Yeah. There's a thing that I talked about on this show a lot, and the show really started that we were backstage hanging with other bands that we were touring with
Mm.
because a lot of people don't get an opportunity to know what really happens right in the green room,
All right.
and they picture that you're partying and and
Yeah.
and honestly, it's we're talking about our kids and what's going on politically or whatever else, and so it gets to be a little bit voyeuristic, and we're talking about real stuff, sometimes real vulnerable stuff. But one of the things that I mention is with these other artists, they get that there is something. It doesn't happen every show. I wish it did, man, but it's the drug you chase, the goosebump moments, that orgasmic, weird euphoria that you mentioned all those people singing louder, like at the show in Edmonton. We had
Yeah.
a show like that, Quebec City, biggest show I'd ever done. We did it with your Canadian brethren, Corey Hart, and
Yep.
people were singing our song so loud, we couldn't hear it. And it was 90,000 people at the FEQ in Quebec,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I could not hear the monitors. I had in-ears in, but it was so loud I could hear the entire audience singing louder than the band, and I'll never forget it. That was 2019, 6 years ago. To this day, it's the greatest moment I've ever had on stage, and so I chase it every night. I'm looking for the euphoria moment. Do you still get them quite a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I get it in like little. I try to find it in smaller doses because it's great when you hear the whole crowd singing. But I look for people, and
Yeah.
you see someone like singing a song back to you like it's their life depends on it.
Yeah.
because I'm singing it that way. I still believe in these songs, like there's some songs that I won't play. Not necessarily about the production, I don't like the song. It just doesn't mean as much to me anymore for whatever
Mm.
reason. It was one of those things where I couldn't tap in deeply into that lyric, and it made it on a record, but we or I tend to choose the songs that still have that guttural meaning for me because then it's believable and I can dig into it on stage. So I try to find those moments with fans, and just, make that connection where it's like whether they're crying or singing it out loud or
Mm.
smiling,
Yeah.
whatever that is, like that's the drug for me.
You just you triggered another memory I had from the documentary, and I'm sorry to bring this up, man. I actually had a little clip because I was gonna play it. It's I did not want to put you on the spot, man, but there's a scene, since you put it out there, right? You had
Yeah, yeah, of
authorized the
course.
documentary. There's the part where you guys are talking and Chantel says, "Maybe we'll do this piece, do you want it simpler?" And inferred that it could be a little bit trite, and you go, "Give me a fucking break." And she goes, "Are you kidding me right now?" And that every musician, I think every couple probably recognizes those moments where, maybe something came out that you didn't quite mean it the way that it came out. But first of all, kudos to you for allowing all that to come out in the documentary. And if people haven't seen
Yeah.
this thing, you need to find it. I know it's like up on Prime in Canada, and you can find it on Tubi and some other places. But uh,
Yeah.
did you get a chance to edit and review before, or did you say, "All right, man, this warts and all, let's do this"?
We tried so hard to make a record together because
Yeah,
we end up doing a lot of charity stuff together, right? So
yeah,
we play each other's songs, and then at one point, and this is like back to 2015, we're just like, you know what? We should just write a couple songs together so we have something to play that's ours. So we're not just covering each other at these different charitable events that we get asked to do. So we wrote one song called I Love It Make When You Make It Me Beg. And I was like, this is like one of my favorite things I've ever been a part of. I love this song. And so the idea was like, hey, let's just get together. Like this happened at like 3 a.m. right here in the studio. The kids were down, dogs, I don't know where they were. It was quiet. And Chantel sat at the piano. I picked up an acoustic guitar and this song just was born like in 20 minutes. And so I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, let's meet here, a couple times a week, couple months, we'll have an album. Like 4 or 5 years later, nothing. So a friend of mine who's a film producer and Chantel's film producer here in LA was just like, she's been watching this journey and she knows us really well. She's a really close friend of ours and she ended up being a co-producer on the film. But she just said, you know what? The only way you guys are going to do this, hire a film crew, record the making of the album, and go somewhere far away. Because here in LA or in Toronto, it's never going to happen. And if you hire people, if you book flights, it's going to force you to do this. So we did that. And we went to this little French island off the coast of Canada, but it's owned by France in the middle of winter. And we did this. And it was really, like I said, it was really about recording the album. But lo and behold, we're away from our kids. We've been like every marriage. It's like,
yeah,
it's this very fluid thing and wasn't a great time in our marriage before that, but we decided we needed to do this. So it got a lot of marriage stuff on there. And when we brought all the footage back and we started editing it, it's like, if we don't show that stuff, if we don't show how the songs were born, for better or for worse, and a lot of them were born out of this kind of strife and friction, then it's like we're not being honest. And
yeah.
so that's it. It's all there. And yeah, I mean, I think it's empowering to have that out there. And I'm not embarrassed by it. I think we're all a work in progress. We all realize that there's no perfect relationship. And the importance of doing the work, like it takes creativity to do that, right? To survive a marriage takes creativity. And so I think the blending of those two things in this documentary is what's really special.
Yeah. I you've got I think you call him Coach John, is that right? You had a marriage counselor there
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
yeah, and he was fantastic in the way.
Marriage coach, he's amazing.
Marriage coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh
Because I said, not to, sorry to interrupt,
no,
Kevin. The difference. So Chantel found John, and she took a long while to find him because she knew for me, it's like I did therapy with my family, back in the day. I don't know if I was a fan. There was some friction points that I just didn't jive with. Um, I'm not saying I'm down on it, but the idea was, John Gray is a marriage coach, and when you
mm,
say coach to a guy, it's like I get
yeah,
that.
that
Yeah,
works. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
take my kids playing basketball. We watch film, and I can be a coach,
Yeah.
that's cool. Like coaching is way more like I get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we see Coach John or Dr. John Gray, who's a marriage coach, a lot, and that was like a really easy in point for me.
One of the things that I noticed in the conversations you had, John observed the way you talked and looked at each other. And there are very tiny points, right? So it's a lot of information in an hour and a half's time. And so we don't get to see the intricacies and the little idiosyncrasies that happen there. But he mentions, I don't think, and I'm paraphrasing, but he observes the way Chantel responds to something you said. And a lot of his observations are what a lot of couples, I think, find
Yeah.
that they're just not being heard. They don't feel heard. Even if the communication was intended to be positive, that maybe there are other factors that go on in that person's life that just make them feel like, I just need somebody to hold me up, you know? And there was the gazing point, I think, came from Coach
Oh
John.
my goodness,
Yeah.
amazing.
It was awesome.
Terrifying.
Yeah, sure.
Terrifying, but amazing.
How do you guys still sort of participate in that now and then?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like he's given us a bunch of tools. And when we started a Substack a little while ago to kind of like, because our fans always were like, hey, I love that documentary. How do we get more of that? How do we learn more? How do we stay connected on that level with us? Obviously, the
Yeah.
music is a level as well. So we decided to start this Substack where we just shot one yesterday. We do a video podcast. We're writing a book around the documentary in our life. So we give excerpts of that. But that's a big deal for us. And not to pimp it up, but it's Rain and Chantel on Substack. And I find it really like liberating to talk to fans and talk about like one of the video podcasts we did, we talked about that eye gazing thing.
Yeah.
And when we first had to do that, like I was sweating, I was shaking. Like, and it sounds stupid, but
No.
to sit still and look in your partner's eye, not say anything, and just gaze into each other's eyes for like 30 or 60 or 90 seconds. I mean, maybe it's just me. I would love to hear from people if they try that and how not only effective is it, but you're looking into your partner's soul and
Yeah.
you will understand what's going on with them and where you are in your relationship faster than any words could ever say.
Mhm. I would think that along with that, because it probably feels like an eternity, but you gotta be willing to look too. If you're half looking, if you're gazing.
But that's a tell right there, right,
Yeah,
Kevin? If you're
right,
not
yeah,
willing to do that, then you understand, okay, there's some sort of barrier here that we got to unblock.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The vulnerability and really, I mean, it's about being accountable too. And I know you guys have said this. I subscribe to the Substack and listen to some other podcasts, and you guys
Yeah.
talk about showing up. You show up for each other,
Yeah.
but you also show up for your kiddos. A dad, got two boys, 26 and 23,
Oh,
and
wow.
showing up was everything.
Yeah.
I was married 28 years. I have a great relationship with their mom, which is, I'm really grateful for that. Um, what they saw in the dissolution of their parents' marriage was hopefully at least mutual respect. That
Right.
if you grow apart, at least the things that are important are your relationship with the kids and making sure that you still hold each other up.
Yeah.
And you've talked a lot on those podcasts about the relationship you have with your kids. In the documentary, you go off to the island and you're working on the record, and there's that homecoming and the kids come out and they're so excited. There's actually a part where you guys are still on the island and your son was really kind of crushed that you guys went away and said,
Yeah. Yeah.
why'd you have to go? And it tugs at the heart, man. It was so hard to see because as a dad, I get it, but
Yeah.
uh, what we don't see on camera is probably more important, so maybe tell me a little bit about the duration of time and how that affected the relationship with the kids when you were gone.
Yeah, I mean, it drove a lot in there of the documentary because Chantel, and again, like I feel like I'm okay to speak for her because she'd say the same thing where that was like the island was already a bit of a villain because it was so cold there. We landed on the island. When we got in the airport, it was packed at like midnight. I was like, what is going on? Everyone's leaving in the winter. They go to like Nice, France, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we'd first gone there in the summer. We did a show there and it was beautiful. We had like this gorgeous afternoon. We flew there in a private plane. We had, a lovely lunch at a cafe, then dinner at another it was just amazing. It was like the most romantic island in the world. I knew it wasn't going to be that when we went back in the winter, but I didn't know that like 80% of the restaurants are closed because people are gone.
Right.
Like there's one grocery store. Like so it was challenging on that level. But, and Chantel will also say this, the idea is that I didn't think we could be comfortable to make this record and make the kind of music we were trying to make. So
Yeah.
I felt like putting in a position where it's a little bit challenging. It was going to be good. Trying to record in this hotel room, something romantic about that. But being 3 flights away from the kids for Chantal was devastating, and she just felt she had this anxiety the whole time, and, like, it was this added tension that maybe she didn't talk about on film. That one little scene with their son Luca kinda gives you a sense, but, man, it was tough for her because, something happens, you're not just hopping on a flight home, it's like, we got 3 flights to get back to LA, it's like,
Right.
probably came back for a day and a half, like, how are we gonna do this? And that was stressful for her because our kids were really young when we shot that, and
Yeah.
it's just like, she was she woke up at, like, an 8 on the stress level every day, so anything that would happen was just like, it would blow up pretty quickly, and she was really emotional the whole time, and so I think, 3 weeks away, whatever, 4,000 miles, we could have maybe found something different, but no regrets.
How 3 weeks you said?
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's, because you don't really get the sense of how long, when you're watching the documentary, it seems like it could have been an eternity or it could have been a week, but,
Yeah, yeah.
and
It was like it wasn't actually, I think it was like 17 or 18 days, but, the travel days on either
yeah,
end makes it
right.
almost 3 weeks.
And the songs that came together because of the duration of the movie, it really feels like those songs just happen, and I don't know how prolific and how, creative you guys are together, but did you guys come with some ideas in mind, or was it just
Yeah, not really. I think the
really?
idea I think, maybe like, overconfident, but because of that first song, I love when you make me beg, was the way it was born here. I was just like, it's really more about finding that alone time to be creative.
Yeah,
And so by going there, that was my whole thought, was like, yeah, we're going to be in this little island where no one's around. That's what's going to happen. Like
yeah,
this magic is going to happen. And it kind of did, to be honest, but getting there was always a little bit of a struggle. And but some of my favorites, like there's um there's a song, which you get to see born from like literally inception to Chantel writing like actually a fight, and then Chantel writes this kind of piano part to like just console herself. And I'm like, oh my God, that riff is really great in the piano. And then I start writing lyrics to it, we write the verse, the chorus, and then we actually recorded at the end of that day with my little digital recording device there and the microphones I brought. And that's what's on the album. It's called I Can Change. And it's
oh,
one of the favorite things that it's one of my
mm,
favorite songs ever, And it was like literally born in that whole hotel room
yeah.
and it ends up on the album from that room. And it's like so special.
It was special for me too. I was in a hotel room, played a show down in Cali this weekend, and, my girlfriend was up in Vancouver with her
Where
friend.
did you guys play at the Rose Bowl thing?
No, 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 we didn't do Cruel World. We were actually at a, winery outside of Sacramento, and,
Oh, even better.
it was beautiful. It was gorgeous,
Yeah.
man. But my girl called me, FaceTimed me from her friend's place, and, they're having a little barbecue, and I'm in tears, man. She's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm watching the Chantel and Raine, documentary." And she's like, "What is going on with you?" And I told her about this part because that particular song too, man, I'm a softie, man, when it comes to, emotional lyrics like that. And just the closeness that you guys had in that part
Yeah.
was really special. I've been an evangelist for this documentary for the last week. Everybody that I
Oh,
know,
thank you.
it's important because there are two hyper creative people in your relationship, and then you don't even factor in, the parenthood part of it. And so I could relate to all of those
Yeah.
things. You know what? Like, let me just start too, because way before we even got started, there's an amazing guitarist and a collector that's here in Portland, that he had thrown chat questions on the YouTube channel. He was talking about covering some of your stuff. He said "Innocence" is
Mm.
all-time favorite song in the
Oh,
entire
wow,
world.
love that song.
It's part of his daily diet of music, and ever since it came out, he wanted to ask about your inspiration from back in the day.
We were recording a record with Bob Rock in Hawaii in Maui, and we kind of thought we were finished the record, and then I came back for Christmas, and Bob just gave me a call, and he's like, "Hey, this record's amazing," because we already had the song somewhere out there, and it felt like it was done. But he's like, "Hey, if you feel like writing, we could probably use another song." And it was a time in my life where
Hey, we lost Raine for a second. It might be his Wi-Fi. That was a cliffhanger. Hey, Raine, you dropped for just a sec. Hang one sec.
like, you know what? Everything's not great. Like there are struggles that are all around us, and I felt like man, I hope that this record isn't influenced by the fact that we're in this beautiful house and we're looking over the ocean when we're recording and all these different things. And my whole idea was that, starting to look insular to, like, even the way I started as a musician in a basement, kind of listening to Nirvana and bands that inspired me, The Clash and different things, and never really knowing if everyone's gonna ever hear what I'm doing. Um, you know, so many people that we know that are somehow, have cancer and are dealing with different diseases. Like, so I felt like the album really needed, like, just another dose of reality in terms of the human experience.
Mhm.
So Innocent really came out of that. Somewhere out there was, we kind of knew that was going to be the first single, and it was like this really, kind of beautiful song about trying to find someone in the ethers and reconnect with them. But Innocent is much more of a, like, very grounded in reality and what this earth gives us and takes away from us.
Awesome. Yeah. Somewhere out there, the purple hair comment. Mine is typically purple, and I was going to pretend that you would actually written that. Oh, so Rain, he just popped off. It looks like maybe his Wi-Fi has dropped for a second. So let me do this while he's gone. I'm gonna ask you guys to do me a favor and subscribe to this channel. Go to youtube.com/@accesskevin and subscribe. He's back. Let's get Mr. Raine Maida back. There you are.
Sorry, yeah, Chantel called from Sweden, and I guess it
Oh,
must have cut us off, so I apologize.
that's all right. You could have brought her on. We could speak Swedish. You could tell her that I'm just like putting you under the gun on all the documentary dirt.
Did you? I wanted to answer that gentleman's question about Innocent. Did you hear any of that, or?
Oh yeah, I did for sure.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you talked about how Somewhere Out There was the first single, but you felt like that was a lot more, sort of personal and insular. Um,
And in a way, like I love the beauty of Somewhere Out There, because it really speaks to that, that personal relationship. But Innocent just had this. I think that I felt like the album needed this gritty dose of reality and, like, that human struggle that exists on so many different planes with people. So I was really excited to write that song. Everyone loved it when I brought it back to Maui, and we recorded it, and it just felt like, sometimes an album just needs that other piece of the puzzle, and that was
yeah,
the final piece.
right on. Jonathan Hooper says in the chat, wasn't the lyric originally "We're all arrogant"?
It was, it
All right.
was, it was a big deal, and I fought for it. And I remember our president at the time of Columbia, Donnie Einer, who I adore
Yeah.
and really respect. Um, he said, "Man, basically, don't do this." And I heard him. And Bob said the same thing.
Right.
Bob was kind of on my side. He was kind of fighting for it on me, but I think we both heard Donnie when it was like, sometimes you got to trust these people. They've been in business for a long time, and I think it was just like, this is too good of a song to let a lyric that could push people away and misconstrue what you're saying, ruin it. And thank God I listened. I'm like, I don't know if I ever thanked Donnie, or Bob, but I am grateful that they got me to change my mind.
Right. Are you is it easy to, because you seem like a kind of guy that probably, can dig his heels in a little bit on stuff that you care.
Oh, at
Yeah.
that point in my career,
Yeah.
I was the most stubborn mofo in the world. I've
Yeah.
gotten much better at trying to let other things in, but yeah, I mean, I stuck to my guns on a lot of things early on, and the more things that you stick to and it works, it just gets you more set in your ways. But I don't think, a little bit of wisdom. I don't think that's the right way to live. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember we were recording. There was a week when they first brought it up when we recorded it, and I was like, That's not happening. Thank you for your your comments, but then, like I said, it's having, Bob is a, a huge producer, a huge
Huge.
respect for him. He's a great guy. And Donnie was, like I said, he was an iconic president of Columbia Records right after Tommy Mottola. And I love Donnie. We had such a great relationship. So I was lucky to have people that actually respected my life change my mind.
Yeah, man. I've heard you talk about your reverence for people in the industry when a lot of musicians have come and gotten their ass kicked, right? So whether it be record labels that kind of shelved them or put them, secondary to other artists, or management that took advantage of them. But I've heard you say nothing but good things about your record label relationships. So yeah, you
Yeah.
win. You win. Is that fortune, or did you
I,
manifest that?
well, I think the story is important because when we signed to Sony in Canada first, um, there was like low expectations. It was like, hey, there's a scene of like post grunge music's going. These guys have some good demos. Let's just give them a little bit of money and see what they can do. And that's really that was the deal.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this big bidding war. Um, and why we signed with Sony was because they said that. They're like, it wasn't someone would say, hey, we're going to bring in an A&R guy and we're not going to use these songs. We want you guys to go write 100 new songs. It was like, no, we like what you're doing. Go take the next 3 months and then send us something. Let's see how it is. Wasn't enough of a financial thing for them to consider it a risk. So I respected that. We did it. Our first record worked out. We had this song called Starseed on it that caught fire in the US, and Robert Plant heard it. And then Donnie heard it from Columbia, and he was like, hey, because we were on like a smaller subsidiary in the US, but Donnie was like, this is incredible. They need to be on Columbia proper. And he kind of let us do the same thing. And we had that conversation with him, and we was just like, yeah, whatever you guys are doing, we don't want to mess with it. Well, this is a bigger machine, so hopefully we can help make it bigger. But the creative journey is yours, and we don't want to interfere with that. And that, so when I say, there's things that they did that I could, I was pissed off at along the way, but at the end of the day, someone that gives you that creative agency, man, shake their hand, say thank you, because that's a big deal in this business.
It is, man. Yeah, it's very rare. You mentioned Starseed. It's funny because when that song came out, I was in a band that was actually working. We were on a development deal with RCA, and at the same time, was doing cover stuff, and we were doing like '90s alternative cover tunes. I'm a drummer, man. So the Starseed riff, like Jeremy stuff on Starseed, and I ripped it
Yeah.
off like left and right. I mean, we covered that song, but I loved the unique melodic stuff that he was doing. I was a massive like Stewart Copeland fan. I could hear some Copeland in there,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and the production on that is really drum centric. Man, the drums are way up in the mix, which is cool. So was that part of your doing?
Yeah, we were just, as we were getting drum sounds for the record, our producer was like this really centric dude where like tones were such a big deal. Where I
Yeah,
was like, let's get in a room, let's get some good sounds, but let's capture the energy of the band. He was kind of the opposite, was like we'd spend a week on drum sounds, and I was always like, man, I want to record this shit.
yeah,
But we keyed into this one snare drum and it had this really unique kind of ring to it. And then when we finally started recording it, it became almost a signature sound of that album.
yeah.
And so it was just one of those happy accidents. I don't know. All of a sudden, Jeremy picked up a snare that was sitting like in the corner, and all of a sudden, it just like the speakers came alive compared to some of the other snares we were trying. And so, you know, there's no way to turn that thing down. It's just loud.
Right. Drummers, if you're watching this, it's a Keplinger snare that Raine's talking about. I know the
There you
snare
go.
well, and a
Yeah.
lot of bands after that came out used that model to get drum sounds, so everybody wanted to go out and find Keplinger snares. So great friend of mine, one of my favorite bands on the planet, the Mayfield Four, was out at that time.
Oh my gosh, I love that band.
Zia, Udine, and I were talking earlier today about that record, and I think you guys did a couple of shows early on, right?
We
So
did, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. They
yeah,
were they were one of my favorite bands at the time too. And I think they knew Greg. So Greg Keplinger is the guy that made that
right,
snare. He was like, he's Matt Cameron, Soundgarden's like drum tech for ages, and a brilliant like drum guy. And
yeah.
those snares are amazing.
Right. When you mentioned that Chantal couldn't be here, and so I changed the announcement about the show, saying that we're just going to bro it up, so we're going to talk sports and cars and this, but we could talk drums if you want. But actually, what I really want to talk, about other Canadian bands. Because this week, I don't know, this month I've actually had a lot of Canadian artists on the show. There's a
Mhm.
big benefit event happening this week back in Toronto area, Mississauga. It's a benefit for Ronald McDonald House, and so the Classic Bowl has all these classic artists from Canada. So Prism and Street Heart
Oh,
and The Box and Haywire and Spoons, of course, and Honeymoon Suite. All those guys are playing this event. And so I had him on the show the other day. We were talking about inspiration. And I mentioned that this band that I'm binging on, it's been years now, and I'm embarrassed to admit how much I'm geeking on it. Big Wreck. I'm sure you've done a bunch of shows with them.
yeah.
So
Yeah, good friends with Ian's a
Ian,
great guy,
yeah,
like talented dude, obviously.
for sure. And I've heard him do other duets, but is there a Ian Thornley, Raine Maida combination, a duet happening anytime soon?
I would do it. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Big Rec. I'm a big fan of Ian's. Yeah, that's as long as you're putting it out there, whenever.
Yeah,
If you're
right on.
talking Ian, pick a day.
It's a band.
We
I've been,
actually, so it's funny, to give you some more context, like we just recorded a song last week in Toronto, kind of re-recorded this song that we did about 23 years ago, and we ended up never playing it live, and it's actually like our second biggest streamed song in America. Some circumstances around the song and the person we wrote it for kind of stopped us from playing it, but we recorded it with a producer named Nick Raskulinecz, who's Deftones, Foo Fighters guy, but also works with Big Rec. So we were talking about Ian. I actually heard, so funny, this is so off topic. Nick Raskulinecz has his own studio in Nashville, and he did this like theme song for his studio. Like, he's crazy. He made this amazing theme song. He wrote it, and then he gets people to come in and he works with to play on it. And there's all these different versions. So he has a version with like George Lynch playing guitar on it, and I can't remember the drummer. But then he has a version that Ian's playing on as well, and he played us that version, and it's just the guitar solo is out
yeah,
of this world. So
it's
we were just talking about Ian actually.
one thing that I really love about the band is that they kind of reinvent themselves. Every record sounds completely different.
Yeah,
His vocal sound is always there, but whatever sort of vibe he's in, the records seem to sort of follow a different strain. So they just announced they're leaking and teasing a new record right now. And so Ian, if you're
that's
watching
right.
this, get on FanDrop, right, and make sure that you're engaging your fans with this opportunity.
Actually, Big Rex used FanDrop.
Okay,
Yeah, they did some pretty cool things with it. Yeah, I love I have great respect for Ian in that band, because I think there's a real like synergy there where we're the same, and I don't think they've followed that, hey, if it worked, let's do it again kind of
yeah,
thing, especially like you said, album to album different. We've kind of done the same thing where there's no reason to repeat yourself. Maybe later, like to
yeah.
go back to something, but to do it, three albums in a row, that's I think Ian feels the same way. It's pretty boring.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, like I said, you're hyper creative. I love the fact that not only musically, you seem to be constantly creating, but you've got your head in all tech stuff. You've got, I've heard you talk about your NFTs. And so
Mm.
when that first was breaking a few years ago, when the craze was starting to happen, what has happened with you in that space between 2021 and now?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about NFTs and blockchain, it's really about the technology it's built on, right? Like
Right. Sure.
crypto's cool. It's a different asset class, but what's cool about it is the technology it's built on. So NFTs are the same thing, and I think we were the first band to release a full album with all this different utility as an NFT. But as the kind of the public perception of what an NFT was, because there's so many rugs and people stealing with them and stuff and manipulating. With all new technology, the first iteration of it, there's always bad actors that come in, and there's an
Right.
underbelly to it, right? And this is proven over history. So I think blockchain is the future. But
Yeah.
as far as NFTs and that stuff, I just told our fans, it's like, especially with FanDrop, because we were using it for that. We don't have to mint things. We don't have to do NFTs or digital collectibles that are on the blockchain. We can still give you stuff that's collectible, and we can still connect, but it doesn't have to be on blockchain. So luckily, FanDrop wasn't even a pivot. We just said, hey, especially some of the artists we're working with, don't do NFTs.
Yeah.
But don't forget that owning your audience is still the key to this whole thing.
You bet. Yeah. So your audience might know that Our Lady Peace is doing shows. You're starting up a tour again. Both Rachel Mortensen and Taft Strickland in the chat had asked about when you're coming to Portland. I can answer close to Portland. I know that you're doing Bend and
Seattle, right?
well, you're
Are we
doing
doing Bend? That's right. We're doing
yep,
Bend. Yeah,
Bend
yeah,
July 9th. And yeah, Seattle, you're doing White River Amphitheater in Auburn on
yeah.
July 8th. I will be there for sure, man.
Oh, amazing,
I'm
amazing.
we've got a little window, and it just happened to be a time that I'm going to be jaunting from British Columbia down here, and you're playing with Live. I'm a massive fan. Ed Kowalczyk again, amazing singer, and I'm sure
Yeah,
you probably played a lot of shows with those guys back in the day.
yeah, yeah. They're amazing. We just had Collective Soul supporting us in Canada on our tour through February and March. Love those guys.
Right.
Big bromance there. So it's gonna and a new artist named Graylin James, who's phenomenal. So I think it's a great whatever 4 hours of music. People are gonna dig it.
That's great, man.
Yeah,
OurLadyPeace.com, is that the best way to for people to find out about the tour?
for sure.
Unless you've already signed up for FanDrop, and then you'll probably already know about it, right?
That's it. Yeah,
That's it. Listen, there's a ton that you and I really wanted to wrap with you. I think when Chantal gets back, we ought to have a conversation, because I think I wanted to talk a little bit about the way that you guys interact and work together, both musically, and you navigate the parenthood thing. I mean, your kids are older now, obviously, than the documentary, but
yep.
it's key for me. My boys are older now. They've grown up. One's in Thailand, living in Thailand. The other one's,
Wow.
and he's an incredible musician. But knowing that there was a point where you had to let go. How old is your oldest right now?
21.
Okay, yeah. So you're at the phase. Have you had to pull back the reins a little bit and just say, all right,
Oh my God. Yeah. Like
yeah,
yeah, I mean, he's an adult, he can do whatever he wants. And but we still have this amazing relationship, but it's just navigating the whole thing of I wait for him to ask me things as opposed to telling things now,
yeah,
right? That's really the difference. And I'm getting better at it as time goes on.
yeah,
The last year I haven't been great at it because he's a musician as well. So it's
yeah,
the feeling. It's hard. You have to let them make mistakes and go through it and have that journey on their own. I tried to fast track it with him and he wasn't into it. I was like, you know what? You're right. I'm wrong, and I apologize. And let's start over. And so, like I said, I just wait for him. If he wants to know about music business, I'll let him ask.
yeah. I'm so much on that same path with you. Somebody told me a couple years ago, because now, but he's 26. He was an incredible drummer, and Canadian man.
Mm,
Like Rush was everything to him, right? So
yeah.
Neil Peart was God to him, and I was more the Bonham school, And so stylistically, we were into different drummers. But as he started to gig, people said, "Oh, of course you're a drummer. Your dad's a drummer." And so then he decided, but he wants to be like their dad, and he became a rapper, right? So he was a hip hop
No
artist.
way. Wow.
Yep, totally changed. And at first, I was disappointed because I was a drummer too, and I wasn't as hip to the style of music that he was doing. But I watched his maturation, and I really commended him on his independence over the last few years. Like I said, he moved to Thailand on his own, and one of my friends told me a couple years ago, you know what? They stop listening to you at about 17, where they really, nothing you say is going to be heard. They just watch what you do.
Yeah.
And so the responsibility is to live the life that you want them. And that
I
was
love that.
that was key. The accountability part was really important, and it goes along with what you and Chantel talk about showing up. Showing up means that you do the work first, and
Yeah.
everything changed for me then, because it took a lot of pressure from me feeling like I had to control his narrative, you know?
They're amazing beings, man. Kids. It's wild to watch them evolve and grow up. And like you said, I mean, that's the fact that he's in Thailand on his own, that's a win right there. That's
Oh,
amazing.
huge. Yeah. I didn't even know he was doing this. He went off and started his own drum company this last month. And so he found a manufacturer, drum company, cymbal company, hardware. And then he said, hey, if you feel like, you want to get some of this stuff and, try it out for yourself. And I'm like, oh,
Wow, that's
well, thanks.
crazy.
I know. But
Amazing.
he's got the initiative that I noticed you having when I started researching what you were doing and looking at all of the tech sector components that you got yourself into. I'm thinking, you have 3 kids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, like, I don't know that. I mean, with 2 kids, my life was really consumed with just music and parenting. And I have a web and a multimedia business. And a lot of that took a second back seat. Took a back seat to me making sure that I showed up for my kids. I don't know how you've navigated doing all this. And I know Chantel's a painter as well, right? So,
Fabulous painter. She's incredible. Yeah.
like, how do you find those time?
I just like, to me, they're all creative. Like tech is it's funny to say this, but tech is either as creative or sometimes more creative than music. Like what I love about FanDrop, it's like we used it on an OLP tour in 2023. Um, but the version we use today is different, and you iterate and you get into this feedback loop and you can change it based on what the fans or customers telling you. A song, it's kind of like you record, you put it out there and that's it.
Yeah.
You can do remixes, but really that's the song. So I love that journey. I love the fluidity of tech, but really, whether it's, and I truly look at parenting as like a creative endeavor as well. The same way I look at, how Chantel and I interact with each other in our partnership as a couple. It's all creativity. So I think that makes it's almost like you're in this big, you know, um, air-filled ball and you're just bouncing from side to side. And it's, as long as it's all creative, it's fine. If you ask me to say, hey, you got to go fix this car now and change the oil, I'm done. Like I'm done for a week.
Yeah. I Oh, okay. There's my ADD going. You talk about cars. The documentary. Tell me about the Bronco, bro. That thing's incredible.
Not ours, of friends. Yeah.
It's not okay.
No, that's maybe a dream. I
Yeah.
don't like you can't see it. I'm sitting in front of like I'm a gear nut. I have a Neve console in my house in our studio. Right now that's my Ferrari or my Bronco. So we'll wait for the real thing maybe
Right.
at some point when the kids are out.
And about Chantel's painting, because the way that you guys separated yourself and you did the recording and at least where you isolated yourself and you sequestered yourself to this little apartment in France, being able to sit and allow that expression to come out on canvas is a really tricky thing. It's not like I can't imagine Chantel coming home from Sweden tomorrow and just grabbing a canvas and just slapping down paint and having something just arrive without giving herself some sort of some spiritual space. Where does she find the time to be able to do something like that?
Yeah, painting's a weird thing for her. It's actually I'm actually astounded that she's as good as she is because she doesn't do it a lot. But when she does it, she'll have moments where she'll try some things and she doesn't like it. But then being in the work for like a week, all of a sudden something comes out. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like we have a picture or a painting that she did of Nick Cave that's up. I love art, so we kind of
Yeah.
collect some art, but it's like in the middle of all this, you know, other art that like people that are strictly artists, but it fits and it's like it's stunning.
Mm,
So I think maybe it's something with her where it's like it's actually better that she's not doing it all the time because when she does tap into something, it has her full attention and it ends up being really amazing. And it maybe gets diluted if she becomes a painter and she's doing that every day.
right. Yeah. Has she sort of planned out exhibitions or openings at all with her work?
She's done one,
Okay.
but it was a few years ago. I think, um, yeah, she has to get in a groove over the course of a bunch of months where she's able to do, like something that feels like that has this continuum and it has like you can tell it's from a period of her whatever
Mhm.
she's painting. So she hasn't tapped back into that, but I'm sure it's coming.
I this is actually one of my dad's paintings back behind me. I'm
Oh wow,
doing a little, shameless promotion. Uh, my dad is not, he was a musician. He's the guy that started me playing music at an early day. And then it's interesting that as he also painted, he was a printmaker and a sculptor. The last thing he wanted to do was market himself, right? I mean, as
right.
the left brain, right brain combination is really rare for somebody to be able to do both. You seem to have figured it out, man. I mean, you're creating and you're writing a lot, but understanding the importance of identifying your audience and connecting with your audience is key. So has that been a sort of maturation and development, or is this what you've always done for you? Have you
I
been that guy?
Yeah, I'm not a sales guy, but I can talk about things I'm passionate about. So obviously the music and like FanDrop is built for artists. It's built by artists. And it's an artist tool. So and trying to convince artists how important this is to to build sustainable careers and reachable audiences, blah blah blah. That stuff sounds like I'm selling a business, but it's no different than talking about like guitar strings that I love or why I love that old, player piano or a Neve console. Like it's all within that creative realm. So I've never had to feel like a salesman yet, if that makes
That's
sense.
Yeah, it totally does. Man. Well, if I mean, I guess the best salesperson is somebody that's just passionate about something. You're not selling if you actually care about it. And um, you mentioned the Nave console. Are you doing production as well? Are you producing other artists?
When we first moved to LA, I was doing a lot of that. We'd have
Okay.
artists come and stay with us, and I'd produce records and demos and develop people. Developed this incredible band from Texas, this little hick town in Texas called Divine, and their band was called Sleepway. And unfortunately, the singer passed away from an overdose. But yeah, I was doing that for a while, and then it's hard, like that experience. Another artist I work with, Care Failure, she had a band from Toronto called Die Mannequin, and we made some incredible music together. Like she lived here with us for a while. She passed away as well from an overdose. That stuff really beat me up, and so I kind of abandoned that and moved more into tech because it's the heartbreak from those moments. They really weigh on you. It
Yeah.
was, yeah, they were hard. So kind of stopped doing that. I work with my son and produce, a lot of our stuff and obviously stuff that Chantel and I do and some OLP stuff. But yeah, it's hard to take on people and their lives like that. And then the this shit is like it's unspeakable sadness. And so I had to kind of stop doing it.
You know, I appreciate you saying that. I think, like I said, I felt like I knew you a little bit by watching the documentary, and you could see some heaviness, in your heart.
Yeah.
And when I started doing the show, I really put my heart into just having these conversations because when we weren't, it was during the pandemic and we weren't out touring. And for me and the other artists I talked to, performing and being a musician and expressing yourself on stage was your identity. What you did was who you were. And when that was stripped away and you had this identity crisis, then it was really emotionally draining. And all,
Mm,
and I noticed how the void affected a lot of people, myself included. And I take a lot of people's weight on. It's really difficult. So it sounds to me like you're that type too. When you see the pain that somebody was going through, and the overdose doesn't just happen. I mean, there's some underlying things that go on with that. Was there any substance abuse issues in your past at all?
No, I think I just always connected, and if I was going to spend time with artists and either develop them or work with them in whatever capacity, it was those types of artists that I want to work with because they're always talking about real shit, and it was
Right.
always so like they were so vibrant in their souls. Obviously, had demons that they were fighting the whole time, but trying to help them through that, but then find the light through the music and see if that can be somewhat sustainable to get them past their addictions. Because you always knew that stuff was going on. It
Right.
was right in front of me. It was in the studio. It was, behind our back door, and I was like, oh shit, this is
Wow.
dark. But
Heavy.
I think because I was attracted to that stuff, I'm not gonna say it was an addiction for me to work with those types of people, but it's just there was a lot of thoughtfulness that went into it, and it really took pieces of me out. And so I just made that, I never say never. There are people that I would still work with, but the idea of, especially when you have kids, it's like your bandwidth for how much heart you have, it is real. Like
Yeah.
I do think that it's like you only have certain capacity. So yeah, I started to move away from it.
Man, the balance, really, I mean, being able to put up a wall a little bit, at least like boundaries for yourself, that's important. Your connection to your fans, the way that FanDrop works, and you really have this closer connection. There is a balance there between having such a closeness to your fans, but still allowing yourself a little bit of anonymity, a little bit of privacy. Do you balance and figure that juggle out sometimes?
Less and less, the more Chantal and I, do little Instagram things in our car or do our podcast, I feel like it's kind of all out there, but um I
She
don't know.
does. She certainly
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
It's so funny.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
I'm a level below that for sure, but for me it's a lot. And I don't know, I feel, I guess I'm more comfortable with it, or it's just at this point, I think, we started talking a little bit about politics. I think more than anything, we need to be in this conversation, this communal conversation that doesn't stop, because when it breaks down, that's where we find ourselves, in
yeah.
terms of the political climate right now. So, and I think people connect on a human level, just instinctively. Everyone's got a dog or a kid or is having a baby or is getting married or getting divorced or whatever, or has their favorite music. So that's kind of like, that's where we exist. So talking about that and letting people into that, I think it's healthy.
That's yeah, man, that importance, the political part, when you see people either supporting or railing against Springsteen, for using his voice, the thing that I notice is, the people that are opposed, oftentimes the argument is, "Oh man, just do your music and shut up." But if you look at Springsteen from the beginning, right, he's always used his voice for what his belief is, and so why why would he change now, especially when he sees injustice, And I think the people that are really against it are people that are really the target of that, right? I mean, they're the people that are maybe either oblivious to what's really happening or they just don't want to see it, you know? But you talked about the importance of actually bringing people together. And when you're on stage, one thing I've found, and my singer would probably hate me for talking about this, but I feel like that is the escape. When you're on stage for an hour and a half and people can just get lost in the music and they don't think about their taxes or the politics or what happened with, the person down the street, and they can just get lost in it and have an escape. Um, their escape from reality is probably the one time in their day where they weren't
Yeah.
seeing it on the news, So where do you find that balance between using your vehicle and using your platform and also and speaking what you're really feeling in your heart versus just giving them an entertainment piece?
Yeah. I mean, we wrote a song for Occupy, that movement, I can't remember what year it was, but, we're on that compilation with like Tom Morello and all these, just heavy political people. And I felt we actually, Steve, our guitar player, is from Michigan originally. He marched at the Occupy March in Detroit. I marched here in LA. Um, Everyone marched in kind of like in a different city, and we were really we went hard on it, and we took a lot of heat.
Did you?
Like people wrote some, yeah, people like big newspapers wrote about us supporting it and knocked us down, and it was never a deterrent for me. But I was, I'm a huge fan of this magazine out of Vancouver called Adbusters. They just take the piss out of corporate
Yeah.
America, the kind of the big shill of like the food we eat and everything that really is happening in like Western civilization, but in a heavy but also satirical way. And Adbusters was a big part of the Occupy movement. But like I said, the idea that it just has to be authentic. Like you have to be in that space. And I guess for Springsteen, he's an advocate for, you know, for for not supporting what's going on politically right now. And I heard Eddie Vedder support him, and I love that shit.
Yeah.
Music's supposed to be a mirror of what's going on culturally.
Yeah.
Um, for me, I kind of did it a little bit during our Canadian tour, where I talked about the importance of what my wife did as this rock and roll badass, and just of the fact that I didn't know what people, and we played in Alberta, like Edmonton was massive. That arena was sold out. I'm imagining half that audience probably is like, let's separate from Canada.
Right.
But I think what you said, Kevin, was really important. They weren't during that concert
Yeah.
because it was this communal thing, and you don't know what the person is beside you, and
Right.
you're having this experience that transcends politics, that can transcend, your struggles and whether you lost your job that day or someone died. And that is the beauty of music. And I, for whatever reason, I live in this place which is a little bit more gratitude centric. And my gratitude during that tour was, let's not lay that on top of people where it might take away from the experience.
That's cool.
But
Yeah.
the next tour, I might not be like that. It might be in a
Sure.
different place and go heavy politically. But like I said, for the moment, and I've, to be honest, like I said before, I've really got to this place with politics where we are being duped. It's not
Yeah.
about tribalism or parties. It's really about the people that have things and people that don't, and
Right.
trying to find more of a balance. That's what we should be focusing on.
Amen. Having done so much of that Canadian tour, we did like 5 weeks across Canada from Vancouver all the way to Nova Scotia, and having been, spent almost all my life just here in the States, and looking at the similarities versus differences. The similarities we have as people, right? I
Mhm.
mean, there's a million more things that we have in common with all in the human race, right? So, you mentioned Edmonton and Calgary. The prairie states obviously are a little bit more conservative, and then you've got
Yeah.
more of the populated areas being more progressive, just like in the States, really.
Yep.
But the thing is, all the guys on our crew, they were primarily from that area. They were all sort of mid, prairie states that were the drivers and the techs and the crew guys.
Yeah.
Amazing human beings, lovely dudes. They would take a bullet for you. And if we didn't know anything about each other's sort of stance on philosophical things, we just felt the alignment, right? And
Yeah.
so I noticed as the prime minister election started to get closer, I'd see their social media posts. I think, wow, we differ, in those opinions. But I've had conversations, with other musicians, even in bands that I've been in, right, where we don't align philosophically, but the core things that you talk about, we really are the same underneath. We want, especially as parents, right? We want our kids to feel like they've got opportunity and they feel supported and they are healthy and safe, and they've got, endless opportunities, for the future. And for our partners, we want them to feel equal and they have, as much equity in their endeavors as they possibly could. And so putting, as you said, I mean, putting the political things aside and looking at the similarities that we have, it is really key to focus on that. And you talk about really where we're being duped. The media is doing it completely, man.
Both sides. Both sides.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and
Yeah.
whether you're looking at liberal, conservative in Canada, or you're looking at Democrat, Republican in the States, there's an importance, I feel like, for critical thought. If you
Yeah. Yeah.
take and strip away all that and you look at decency and ethics and you just look at the importance of actually listening to each other and finding the values that we have inherently, that's really where we grow, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's there are commonalities, but those things get buried by, especially with social media, like living in your own echo chambers and all the tribalism and identity politics stuff. That shit is meant to divide.
Yeah.
But if you can focus on what you have, the commonalities, because like you said, we all have kids. We're all trying to just make a living and keep your job and walk home and be happy,
Yeah.
and those are just simple human things that we all strive for. So it's an amazing time. Like you think about people that have kids. It's like this is the first, the cliche of like, oh, it wasn't like that when I was a kid. Man, this shit is different than when we were kids, for
Yeah.
real. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
easy.
Are your parents still alive?
Yep.
Okay. Then yeah, I bet you have those conversations with them too. Like, yeah, this is not the civilization that you saw when you were kids, right? Because those were conversations I would have with my dad passed a year ago, and I'm so glad he doesn't have to see where it is right now.
Yeah, that's
He'd be
interesting. Yeah.
livid.
Yeah, I see my parents struggle, with the idea of what our kids are going through, not even having to like engage with it really, because they're obviously a step removed from what we deal with as like the immediate parents. But man, it's like I feel for my boys. It's
Yeah,
it's rough. You're
it
like you're navigating so much stuff that we never had to. It was like you say it's simpler times. It's not a horse and buggy, but man, it was a lot simpler.
Yeah, I mean, all respects, not even just politically, but financially, it's really difficult for kids. Like you look at their opportunities, and I know for me, my boys, for them to buy houses and have any kind of sense of retirement. Oh my God, right? And you're living in the thick of it, man. You came from one of the most expensive places in Canada to one of the most expensive places in the States, and so you're seeing, like, well, I hope my kids get a lot of stuff figured out, right?
Yeah, and I just had some conversation today on AI, and it's like Good Lord, that we've almost already missed the boat on AI. AI is not like blockchain or crypto where it's this kind of trendy thing that has a pop and then it'll settle down, but it'll come back. AI is like
All consuming.
turbo, man. It's full speed ahead. It's faster than we can imagine. And so anyone's discounting that it's like a trend like VR or blockchain or and AI is the new one. This is a different animal. This is real. And it's affecting music for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When the virtual Raine Maida is out there and releasing music without your permission, we're in trouble, right? The,
Yeah.
I usually ask folks at the end of the interview what their legacy should be. What does Raine Maida want to be remembered for?
That's interesting. We're actually I hate talking about this shit, but we're actually in a few weeks we're getting a star on the Canadian Walk of Fame. And I've had to think about that just in terms of okay, that was really never on my bucket list. Like when you think about you start a rock band, think about like selling out a club or getting a record deal or hearing a song on the radio, being remembered and kind of emblazoned in like a country's history like that is pretty special. So I think like to think the musical legacy is kind of not to sound stupid, but it's like intact. The legacy with FanDrop, I think, is really important to me. And I don't care if it's FanDrop or someone else wins, but I love being in this conversation because making it easier and making this business sustainable for new musicians, especially that are coming up and helping them understand how important it is to own your audience and stop relying on this third party platforms is so critical for even my son
Yeah,
and for every other artist out there. So being like on the mountaintop fighting and screaming my lungs out for that, um, if we can get there, and like I said, it doesn't have to be me. I'll help whoever wants to do it and has more money or whatever. But the idea that that gets into the psyche and the mind share of new artists, so they don't feel like I can't make a living at this, so it's just going to be a hobby. Because then we miss out on like years of great artists that never
right.
were fulfilled. Like, imagine if Buckley was living today. It's just like, oh,
Uh,
you know what? I'm playing at this clubs, and now I can't do this. Too expensive. I'm gonna go do something else. Like,
yeah,
we are on the precipice of missing out on those types of artists, which means all these amazing songs that'll never come to be, all these amazing albums that'll never come to be. And I'm fighting for the lives of those artists right now with FanDrop. I know that sounds like, what does that mean? But it's the
no, man,
truth. So I think that I'm hoping that's my legacy on the other side, beside of music.
I love it. I've heard you mention Buckley before too. Is Grace on your sort of Mount Rushmore of albums?
Could be the one, man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, talk about vulnerability and authenticity. That was it. What would Jeff Buckley think looking at the state of the music business today?
Um, I think, it's so crazy. So, like you were saying with your kid, like my kids, they're all hoopers. They grew up in like this kind of hip hop culture here in LA. I'm taking my son to school this morning. My younger son's 16, and he plays a song. I can't remember the name of the song, but it's on the second record Buckley never did, but got released called Sketches of My Sweetheart. And I'm listening, and it's a very different Jeff Buckley song. It's almost like this kind of ballady, really stripped down um song. And I actually thought almost of what you said. Like I feel like he would just keep making music and probably not simplify because he wasn't simple and just because of his incredible talent. But
Yeah,
I feel like there's an artist that would just keep doing the work. You know what I mean? Like he would probably not be paying attention to any of the stuff like some artists are able to do,
right.
um, which is amazing. I think we've gotten there in our own way where you know, I'm not. I love our fans, but we're not making music for our fans. We still do this because we could just go out and just play hits. We're making new music because it fuels us, and we feel creative enough to like that we have something new to say. And I feel like Buckley would have always had something to say.
That's awesome, man. Guys, listen, if you got here late, there's so much goodness in Raine Maida and your message. Now, man, I really appreciate how authentic you are. When I watched the documentary and I've listened to podcasts with you, I hear you navigating this journey in a
Yeah,
really, in a like a pretty determined way. You're real deliberate in the way that you've navigated this, and I think I'm excited to see you perform live now after getting to know behind the scenes Raine Maida. You talked about Chantel's Instagram post, and it cracks me up, man. I mean, that your dynamic is hilarious, and she seems to be just she's very, I guess she's very real. The authenticity is really there with her. She'll just say, you know what, I feel like recording this thing right now, and you're in the background without any say about it, but I feel like your yin yang is inspiring for a lot of couples. I think it's awesome to see. Coach John, if you want to give a little shout out to him and maybe some recommendations for people that could benefit from having
Oh
an
my,
objective.
yeah, I would say watch the doc and you'll get a sense of like Dr. John Gray. He has a practice up just outside of Sonoma for couples. I think it's Healing Couples Retreat is what it's called. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But even in the documentary, he gives five. I don't have time to go over it, but he gives five, like it's gold pieces of advice, like little things to do: CPR, catch, pause, repair. Like it's worth it just for that. But if people are actually going through anything and like on the verge of a possible divorce or something, and you want help, we've done Imago, we've done different couples things. John's actually a musician. He's like a classical musician.
Okay.
So the creativity that he brings in his toolbox and what he teaches you is like nothing we've ever heard. So Mox, we're huge fans of his. I would like thank you for letting me shout him out because he came from Stanford, like neuroscience. Like he's the guy.
Oh man. Listen to that. We just lost Rain again for a second, but he gave the shout out.
Chantel's trying to get a hold of me.
Oh, she is. Well,
Sorry
listen,
about that.
no, that's cool. Listen, tell her that we'll schedule a time when she's back from Sweden, and like I said, I'm going to touch base with you because I definitely want to connect, man. When you're in the Northwest, and we're down in your neighborhood, we're doing the Greek in August. So if you're off and you're available, oh, he's gone. Here, guys, do me a favor. Check this link below one more time. If you haven't done so, subscribe to this channel, youtube.com/@accesskevin, and subscribe. Then you can go back and you can look at this thing from the beginning. So Raine Maida, listen, tell Chantel we're going to schedule a time.
She just knocked me off again.
That's
Of course,
so
it's her.
awesome.
Yeah,
Of course. Well, you can tell her this is just like the documentary, man. She's got her opinion, and she's going to let it be known that this is her time.
And just so you know, I have everything else on Do Not Disturb, but
Uh-huh.
she's the one number that can get through.
That's all good, man.
Yeah, man.
I look forward to meeting her. And like I was just saying, when you disappeared, we're down in your neck of the woods. We're at the Greek in August, so I would
Oh,
love to, man. I'd love to have you as my guest if you're up for it. And
thank you.
man. And I will see you July 8th. I'll come to the White River show. So let's
Hit me up before so we can connect. Grab a
please,
drink.
man. And
Yeah,
thank
amazing.
you for this, man.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. It
Raine
was an honor.
Maida.
It was a great conversation.
But I just, man, you're something else. This was a special time. So thank you.
Oh,
And
thank you.
for everybody that came late, there are some key takeaways. So I want you to go back from the beginning of this. If you missed it, go to youtube.com/@accesskevin. All of these things will be in the show notes. We'll have FanDrop out there. OurLadyPeace.com has the calendar. The most impressive thing to me, man, is just how you've navigated parenthood and your relationships and the way that you interact with human beings. It's important to be good humans and to pass that on. So thank you for this, man. And to all of you guys, if you're going through a rough time, there's some real beautiful moments here. So grab a hold of Rain and let him fill you up.
Thank you, man. Have a great night.